In my book, Mastery, I discuss how you can get your life in order and find out your life's tasks and become a master in your career. And the following is a compilation, a greatest hits, if you will, of all those moments in which I've discussed how you can follow the path towards mastery as laid out in this book. Thank you. I was getting a little worried that people who were reading my books, particularly young men who were reading Power and Seduction, they were thinking, that's all I need in life, man. I just need to be a manipulator. I just need to play political games. That's what success is all about. And I was worried that if you don't understand how to make something, what's going to be the future of mankind? Are bridges just going to fall down? Are hotels going to collapse? People don't know how to make things anymore. We don't know how to use our hands anymore. Being able to be good with people is extremely important as a social animal. But perhaps higher up in the hierarchy is being able to do things, to be able to have great skill and to be able to create something and know how to master a subject and to, build something that can last. That's really important. And I'm feeling like because young people have this idea that everything comes quick and easy because you can click, click, click and things come to you, that everything in life should be that way, that we're becoming alienated from the human brain and how the human brain operates, because the human brain requires time. One of the most important life skills that anybody can develop is focus and concentration. I know when I try and figure out an idea for a book that I'm writing, and I give it an hour and then I distract and I go away, I lose something. But if I dig for 4 or 5 hours for 10 days into this one problem, like a madman, obsessed with it, I get somewhere. I get some truth to it. And Steve Jobs, the person that we venerate, he was the master of that. Unfortunately, the person who ironically created the iPhone that's driving us all crazy, but he would close his door, leave me alone for 24 hours, I'm going to think this through. You don't realize the power that you have with your brain when you focus on something simple for enough time. It's like a drill boring into a piece of wood. You got to keep on boring and boring and boring until you get all the way through.
All of us are born unique, and scientifically, your DNA will never be replicated, never happened before, never will happen again. This uniqueness that you had when you were born manifested itself by certain things you were drawn to. You were drawn to games, strategy, chess, that you'd be like a Napoleon, or you're drawn to music, or you were drawn to visual patterns, or you were drawn to sports and things like that. It's very primal, and it's showing something about you that's unique. And I compare it to a kind of a voice that's inside of you. It's a voice that you're 5 or 6 years old that's sort of saying, this is what you're interested in, Robert, or this is what you really like, Allison. And as we get older, that voice tends to become drowned out by your parents who are saying, go to law school, be a doctor, I'm doing the Jewish parent here, or you're listening to peers who are saying, this is the cool job, you want to be a rock star and you have no interest in being in it, but you're going to do it because it's cool. Or money's the prime thing, I got to be comfortable, this is a tough world to live in. And that voice gets drowned out. Even the worst job that you're in, if I had just gotten depressed and sad and down on myself, that is dead time. I'm working for this man who's paying me. My time is his time. He owns me during those 8 hours that I'm in his office. It's dead. I'm a dead person. It's like grass that has turned brown inside, right? It's not been watered. But if I turn a switch and I go, I'm learning about human nature. I'm learning about the ugliness in people's souls. I'm learning about the ugliness in my own soul. I'm learning about what I never ever want to do in life. I'm learning about how I'm going to have to quit this job very soon. It's a lifetime. It's green. It's like it's watering. It's turning greener and greener and greener and greener because I'm using it for some purpose. I'm learning. Everything is an example for learning. Even flipping burgers at McDonald's, you're learning about human nature. You're learning about yourself. So it becomes your time. You own it. You're not working for somebody else. You're enriching yourself. You own it. It is your time and it's alive. You're never going to have anything successful in life if you're just copying what other people are doing. So you have to be willing to be original, to be weird, and to go out on a limb and to express your true feelings and what's really going on inside of you. So if you listen too much to what other people are telling you, your work will just be a pale imitation of what the latest meme is on social media. It'll have no originality to it and it'll die very quickly. On the other hand,
If you just care about your own thoughts and ideas and you have no objective voice, nobody who can say this is good or bad, you're just going to write like a schizophrenic, like a madman. So you need a balance. You need people you trust in your life who can give you honest feedback and say this is good or this is crap. But you also have to have confidence in your own voice and say, I don't care what they're saying on social media. I know this is great. Other people have said as well. And I'm just going to be a rebel. I'm just going to stand by what I say and put it out there.
You can fake your way when you're in your 20s and 30s because you're young, life's exciting, you can make money, can be sort of a motivating factor. But what happens is you're less and less engaged in your work. You're not connected deeply. You're kind of bored. You're not paying deep attention. You're sort of skating by. And by your late 30s, it starts to catch up with you. And people are coming up who are younger than you, who are handsomer, who are less expensive. They replace you. You're downsized. You're out of a job. And suddenly you don't have the skills to adapt because you didn't really follow something you were meant to follow.
If you spend your 20s trying to learn skill in something that connects to you deeply, then things are going to happen to you by the time you reach 30. You've discovered your life's task. It may not be something so specific. For me, it was writing and words, but I didn't know what to write. I tried novels, I tried journalism, I tried theater, I tried screenwriting. But you know it gives you a direction, and you try and you try and try. And you know that's what you were meant for. That's what you were destined for. You feel connected to it. You feel a love for it. And so when it comes time to do the tedious stuff, you're able to do it because you know in the end it'll pay rewards. You'll get better and better at it. And the connection is so deep that to not do it would be miserable.
I'm trying to radically shift your perspective on who you are and your whole concept of what makes you happy and fulfilled in life. Trying to build in this idea that there is a vocation for you, that you have a calling in life, that it stems from something deep inside. And in childhood, in your early years, you're kind of in tune with this. You're drawn to sports, to chess, to mathematics, to music. Something draws you. For me, it was history and writing. You can't explain it. It's pre-verbal. It's so powerful. And as you get older, that voice gets weaker and weaker and weaker. You listen to your parents, you listen to peers, and you're in your 20s, your 30s. You don't know who you are. You followed the wrong career path. You're a lawyer, but you don't want to be a lawyer. You're lost, and it gets too late to regain it.
You're working really, really hard on something. You're creating all this information, and in your brain, all these neural pathways are connecting, and that's unconsciously. But consciously, nothing is happening, and you're getting frustrated. You've almost learned too much. You've almost thought too deeply into it, and you're kind of blocked. And then you step away from it for a day or something, and you let go, and all of those connections that are happening unconsciously now reach the conscious mind, and you become aware of the perfect idea that had been there the whole time, but you were blocking it by being too intense and too focused on one way of doing it, right? Frustration is a good sign. Frustration is a sign that you're going to be turning the corner at some point. If you give up, then that's the worst thing that can happen to you.
The problem that most people have, and believe me, I know it, when you're writing something or working on a project, is you have no distance. You have no ability to analyze your own work. Mm-hmm. You think that everything you do is just golden and beautiful, or you think everything you do is awful or terrible, right?
Yeah.
So you can have other people look at it and who can kind of bring you back to reality and say, this is what's working, this isn't what isn't working. But oftentimes you can't trust other people. First of all, maybe they don't really know. Maybe they're not as knowledgeable on the subject. And also they might have a political axe to grind or whatever. So you have to become your own critic. You have to be able to see the flaws and what isn't working in your own creation. And sometimes, it's very hard to do that. You tend to kind of gloss over the things that aren't working.
I want you to think of your career path not as this sort of random thing that just sort of happens to you, that you live in the moment and whatever appears you have to take, or this direction or that direction, the usual passive approach that a lot of people have. I want you to think of your career path as actually a work of art. Something that you are creating, that you are forging, that you are making, that it's not something that just happens to you.
Steve Jobs, he's 5 years old, 6 years old, and he's walking down the street and he looks in a window of an electronics shop and his eyes just light up. Whoa, what are those things? And what's interesting is he's not just interested in electronics, he's interested in how they look and their design. Now you can draw a line from 5-year-old Steve Jobs to 55-year-old Steve Jobs, the same obsession with electronics and how they're designed and how they look, and the interface between those two. That voice he stayed true to. There are people who lose that voice and then re-find it later in their life and get back to their vocation. And the reason is, if you don't love your work, you're going to burn out. You're going to stop paying attention. You're not going to be creative. You're going to be rigid and conventional.
We see the book or the project that brings the money and the attention. In other words, we see the visible signs of opportunity and success. But we are grasping at an illusion. What really allows for such dramatic changes are the things that occur on the inside of a person and are completely invisible. The slow accumulation of knowledge and skills, the incremental improvements in work habits and the ability to withstand criticism. Any change in people's fortune is merely the visible manifestation of all of that deep preparation. By essentially ignoring this internal invisible aspect, we fail to change anything fundamental within ourselves. And so in a few years' time, we reach our limits yet again, we grow frustrated, we crave change, we grab at something quick and superficial, and we remain prisoners forever of these recurring patterns in our lives.
If you look at craftspeople, somebody who's building a house or an architect, they can't sit there and just suddenly have it happen. They have to go brick by brick by brick. They have to lay a foundation. They have to focus on the foundation. But at the same time, they have an overall vision of what the house will look like. Mm-hmm. So if you're only focused on the day-to-day, it loses a little bit of spirit. Yeah. So you need to allow yourself a little bit of dreaming.
Those who are successful seem to know from age of 7 or 8, maybe older, they're very in tune with what they love. I compare it to a voice inside their head. Not literally a voice, but it's something saying, you really are drawn to this subject. And they hear it throughout their lives. For me, it was writing and books since I was a kid. Anytime I deviated from that love and went into something else, I just was so unhappy. I knew that I wasn't doing the right thing. And so it's just like this voice that keeps drawing you back to what you really, really love.
You want to look for the job that offers you the most possibilities of learning. So if you're going to go to a florist shop where there's only one other person there, it's like an entrepreneur who started it, and you're going to be like their right-hand man or woman, and you're going to learn, and the pay is half of what you could get working at the shop at some department store where they'd pay you triple. Take the job that pays 1/3, where you're going to learn the most, you're going to learn about the business, you're going to learn from the ground up. There's going to be a level of excitement. A lot of people, when they're 23, they grab the job with the biggest paycheck. And that's a mistake, because if you go to a large firm, you're kind of lost. You don't have as much responsibility. You suddenly have to deal with all the political games, the 48 laws of power. You're not developing skills as much. You don't have as much responsibility. Take the job that has 1/2 the salary, but you're responsible, you're going to be learning. That's the most important thing you can do when you're at that point in your life. It's not about passion. It's not about finding your passion. I actually don't like that word passion. It kind of makes me cringe, because if you think about it, passion, to succeed at anything requires time and effort and boredom and tedium. So let's just say a simple example. You're learning to play the piano. When you first sit down at the piano, you have to play these really insipid tunes. It's so boring. You have to learn finger exercises and scales. On any instrument, you have to learn scales, etc. It's tedious, man. If you think it's got to be passion, forget it. You're never going to get far. The thrill comes after a year of playing the piano, and you get better at it, better and better. And now it starts becoming fun. In 10 years, it's more fun. Then 20 years, it's fantastic.
Your laziness is something that has to do with you. You're not connected to something deep enough. You don't feel the necessity. You don't feel the devil at your heels. You don't feel the fact that you could very well die tomorrow that will impel you to get something done. There's no necessity behind it. And the human animal, the way we were created, is when we feel pressure, we feel the necessity to get things done. We can move mountains. But when that pressure releases and we don't feel the need to get something done, we can become incredibly lazy because there's no necessity. So you have to create necessity in your life. You have to create the need to get things done. You have to give yourself deadlines. You have to remind yourself that tomorrow everything could go kaput. You could be fired. You could die. You could have an illness. Give yourselves a sense of urgency that I need to get things done quickly.
There's a good mentor figure and a bad mentor figure. The bad mentor figure is that kind of father figure that wants to keep you under his or her thumb and won't let you assert your own independence. And if after 5 or 6 years of being with them, they won't let you go out on your own, and they're oppressive. And then there's the other kind of loving type that wants you to succeed and that lets you cut the ties and sort of slowly gives you more and more independence.
There's a lot of bullshit in the world about do what your passion and all that. And I don't believe in people just dropping their careers and becoming a rock musician or writing poetry. You have to make a living, you have to be practical, but let's go through a process and find out where you went wrong, what you were meant to do, and how, instead of like veering suddenly to becoming a rock star while you're in law, how we can kind of carve a path this direction towards music, towards maybe something that is more what you connect to. How do we now carve a path there?
If the idea of discipline, of consistently doing an action, is only associated with pain, with tedium, being by yourself in a room, doing one thing over and over and over again, you're never going to get over the mountain because it's associated with too much pain, and the brain naturally shrinks from anything that's painful. So there has to be pleasure involved. Discipline has to have an element of pleasure. Consistently doing your work has to have rewards. Reward is the key word here. So if you never feel a direct, pleasurable sensation from what discipline is giving you, then it's never going to work.
To create something big and lasting, it's going to take time. It's going to entail some pain, some sacrifice. And what you need to do is you need to change your whole assessment of what is pleasurable. What is pleasurable is actually accomplishing something that you set out to actually reach your goals, to actually take the time to make something that's meaningful to you. I can tell you personally that fulfillment that I get from writing a book, even though it takes a lot of painstaking and tedious hours of work, is a feeling that is so superior in pleasure to anything else in life. It's like I could die tomorrow and it's okay. I did what I wanted to do. I said what I wanted to do. I felt like I helped people and I worked on it and I gave it everything I had. That is a much deeper form of pleasure. And I want you to reorient your sense of pleasure to these longer term goals and not to these shorter term goals.
We have these romantic notions that creativity involves being spontaneous and free and natural, and that to be creative, if it requires so much work and effort, that kind of spoils the effect. But this is not only wrong in a general way, it's also wrong scientifically, because that's not how the human brain works. Essentially, the human brain is a dual processing system. Information comes into the brain. It is designed to compare and differentiate things that come in. We hear this sound, we associate it with this, or we contrast it with that, and that allows us to respond and be intelligent and rational with this material. That's the brain. It's a dual processing system. The more information that comes into the brain, the more you feed it with experiences, with study, with research, with practice, the more the brain can naturally make all of these associations and connections between this and that.
The key factor in life is motivation, is desire, is the energy that you bring to it. If you don't believe in yourself, if you only half-heartedly are reading my books or listening to Tom or listening to me and you go, yeah, I kind of want to change, it won't matter, it won't change anything. You'll just go back to your old habits because habits are very powerful. You're a product of the cultural moment. It's very hard to resist it. It's very hard to swim against the tide of the times that we live in. So if you don't have the motivation, if you don't have the energy, if you don't have the idea that, damn it, I'm going down fast, if I don't turn this around, you're only alive once. It's, YOLO, and it goes past really fast. I can tell you that as I get older, faster than you think. So you've got to be desperate. You've got to tell yourself, I've got to get out of this. I've got to change my life. I've got to swim against the tide of the times that I live in. I have to change my ways, because if not, when I'm 32, when I'm 35, all of my hopes, all of my horizons will narrow so much that it's going to look very, very bleak.
You've got to find out what makes you unique, what it is that you love that's completely who you are, that is like your potential when you were born, that thing that really nobody else can do. It's a process. It's not something that's a light bulb goes on in your mind. But there are indications of it in your childhood, when you were 16 or 17, things that you love that connect to you in a very deep emotional way. It's not just suddenly quitting your job and going off and writing poetry or playing the guitar. We all have to make a living. We have to be practical. But there are ways for adjusting your life's path so that it matches something that excites you. But if you have no connection to who you are and what you really love, you're going to hit that wall at 35 and life isn't going to be pretty.
But the other night I had dinner with Stevie Wonder. It was the most amazing thing I ever seen. He's absolutely, I wish I had interviewed him for my book. Speaking of genius, and he's blind, obviously. But I was watching him, he performed for us. We were there with a group of friends at his recording studio. I was watching him play the piano, and he's blind. And he's improvising. And it's just absolutely brilliant and amazing. And as I'm seeing this, I'm thinking, I could see the thousands of hours he's been putting in, just touching these keyboards and knowing where the keys are. It was just mind-blowing how amazing it was. That is the power that the human brain naturally has through hours and hours and hours of effort. He didn't get there because it was passion. He was playing that as he was a kid, hour after hour after hour after hour. He had a love for the piano, but it wasn't like every time he sat down it had to be passionate about it. He had the patience to put up with all of the boring stuff.
To get anywhere in life, you have to work extremely hard and you have to be disciplined. If you wanted to be a great piano player, there's no drug you can take, there's no self-help book, there's no guru. You got to spend 5 years, 10 years learning it until it becomes something that's second nature. There are no shortcuts. But if you learn that from an early age, like 10 years old or whatever, you see after a few years that an incredible pleasure happens where now you have mastery of this piano and you can play things you could never play before. Suddenly the whole thing opens up, this whole new universe. And that's the paradigm for everything meaningful in life. If you learn something well, if you learn a craft and you master it, it can bring you a far greater pleasure than any kind of drug or any kind of going out to a party or socializing. But you have to be patient and you have to not be afraid of boredom. You have to not be afraid of the effort.
Even with the success I've had with my books, I'm never happy. I'm chronically dissatisfied. I want to make the next book sell even better. I want to make it even better than the one before. There's a negative side to that because it means I can't relax. I can't say, wow, you sold millions of copies of this book. That's an incredible achievement. Most books sell like 5,000, 10,000. You sold over 2 million of the 48 Laws of Power. Robert, give yourself a hug. No, I can't. Gotta do better, I gotta do better, I gotta do better. That's not good. But it also means I don't rest on my laurels. It means I've got to improve. The next book has to be better. I have to work harder. I have to think more deeply. I can't relax. I can't just repeat what worked in the past. I'm never really totally satisfied. And it's a very powerful, motivating tool to continually improve and to say this next project has to even be better than the last one.
People want their life to be free of struggle and conflict. They want a smooth path in front of them. When you face adversity or things aren't going quite well, you have to reassess who you are. You have to reassess your opinions. You have to say, maybe I'm not doing this the right way. Maybe my patterns of responding in the past aren't working out. Maybe there's something wrong with me. How can I learn from this moment? How can I get past this particular obstacle? If you never have failure, if you never have conflict, you are never going to develop yourself in life. And there are people who are studying children now in the world who are saying it's a major problem because parents are trying to shield them from any kind of conflict in the world. And children develop through kind of struggles and conflicts and friction with siblings and colleagues and even parents. So inadvertently, you could be creating a monster by trying to remove all kinds of forms of resistance and conflict. So conflict is something you must welcome as a test and a challenge and a way to strengthen yourself up, because life is harsh, life is difficult. And if you're not tough in this world, you're going to have a life of pain.